Welcome back to Soren Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host Saeed, and today we have headed to South Florida, and I'm joined by Crystal Gargiulo. I'm not really sure how I pronounce it correctly. I'm sorry,
Close enough, Gargiulo.
Gargiulo. Yeah, thank you so much. So
You're
she's a
welcome.
realtor serving at the Fort Lauderdale and at the broader South Florida market. And Crystal, welcome to Soren Real Estate Podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much. Before actually jumping into the journey and all of that, talking about it, let's talk about yourself as well. Crystal, tell us a little bit yourself. Like, how did you start real estate and what you were doing, before you were doing real estate? Let us know about your journey.
So, I started out as a real estate appraiser, and real estate has
Advice.
been in my family for many, many years. My grandfather was an appraiser, my uncle was a mortgage broker, my grandmother was a realtor, and
Oh,
I actually completely turned away from the business. I thought I do not want to have anything to do with it. I want to go and forge my own journey. And it was just this random meeting with an old
hmm
friend at Blue Martini, which is a local bar down here. It was
hmm
probably midnight, and I ran into him and I said, "Oh, what have you been up to?" He said, "Oh, I've been appraising. We really need help. Do you have any desire to come get your license?" And I thought, I don't have anything else going on. Why not? So that really started my journey into appraising. And then once I started doing residential, that was back in 2007 into the crash of 2008. So I got a literal crash course on appraising, on all of the craziness that was going on.
hmm
And then I kind of got burnt out. And so I decided to go to the commercial side. And I was with Cushman and Wakefield for many, many years.
hmm
But again, it was great, but it wasn't really something I was in love with.
hmm
And so I took a step back from that for about a year. I became a stay-at-home mom, and I have a dear friend of mine who kept encouraging me to get my license. And I thought, I am not in sales. That's not what I do. And finally, I was at a crossroad in my life, and I said, you know what? Let me just go for it. And I did. And that was about 7 years ago, and I have never looked back.
Awesome. So it kind of runs with the family, like being in a real estate career. That was a fantastic actually journey, and you finally kind of accepted. So, you said the appraiser advantage. You have that part. I think this is one of the most interesting things about your background, honestly. So, how differently does an appraiser look at a property compared with an average buyer or seller, or even a realtor? Because I think that's kind of giving you a big advantage. But let us know about that part.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the advantages that I have is that I look at properties much more objectively than I think a
Mhm.
buyer or a seller or even an agent, because everyone has their emotions invested in a property.
Exactly.
It's this intrinsic value that people assign to a property if they like it or if they don't like it. And with me, I look at it completely objectively. I look at all of the measurable data. So, it's the how many properties have sold in the neighborhood? What have they sold for? How many days were they on the market? I'm looking at, was the kitchen updated in the Tuscan era or is it current
Mhm.
modern updating? Like, there's all of these things. Like, you know, sellers, they especially like find these really interesting things that they love about their property, but it's not something that is valuable or it's not going to be valuable to every single person. So for
Mm,
me, I think objectivity is one of the advantages that I'll always have when I'm looking at a property.
awesome. That's a really, really good part. I think that's a kind of cool thing that you're doing for that. So let's talk about overpricing for a second. What actually happens when a seller overprices a home? Seller usually kind of think like, let's start high. We can always reduce the price later. So why can that strategy sometimes, backfire? Let us know about that part since you are, an appraiser. So let us know about
It's probably one of the worst things that a seller can do. I will
it.
die on this hill. I talk about it all the time on my social media platforms. Like, pricing is everything. And sellers want to like build this negotiation into the price, but that's not what is going to get the most amount of seller or most amount of buyers through the front door. And when you
Hmm.
price a property right in line with the market, it
Hmm.
does a couple of different things. The first thing is it sends a message out into the world that this seller is a serious seller. They understand the market and they're going to price accordingly. And that subconsciously and consciously attracts buyers. They're like, oh, we want to work with a seller that's amenable to what's going on in the market and
Hmm.
not trying to, haggle, because we're not really in a haggling market right now. It's like
Exactly.
the market down here, it's very equal. It's, buyers have some power and sellers have some power, and there's a bunch of compromise that goes on. And pricing is it's like your first introduction into the world. It's like your
Mm.
first impression. And when somebody sees a
Exactly.
house, the first thing they look at is the price. And if it's overpriced, they're going to scroll on by.
Very good point. Very good point. I love that, Crystal. Exactly, you're right about it. I heard that from a lot of agents as well. Like, yeah, that's your first impression, and you are overvaluing your own property. Later, probably you're going to, reduce the price, and that will not, you will not going to find a good buyer. Honestly, I think that's what is going to happen if you do it. Very good point. Now let's talk about your own market, South Florida, and you're based in South Florida area with activity throughout, many places like Palm Beach and all of that. For somebody watching from another state, how would you describe your market right now?
Well, we have a couple of very different markets going on right now. We have our single family home market, which is still very balanced. We have about 5 months of inventory, which indicates a balanced market. So buyers and sellers kind of have about equal amounts of power and negotiation. Now with condos, we're at still about 12 months of inventory. And so we are squarely in a buyer's market. But with all of the new legislation, with all of the financial issues that a lot of our associations are having, it is really tough to get a condo sold, because
Mm,
even if a buyer likes it, they might not be able to qualify because it's not financeable,
mm,
or maybe the insurance isn't what it's supposed to be. There's just a lot going on in that sector. So really, it's two separate markets. So you can't really just blanket and say, oh, it's all just like this. It's definitely um, two different things going on. So I would tell
mm,
a buyer who's coming down here to look at condos, look at them. You can really get some good deals, but you have to be very, very keen on what's going
mm,
on. And that's why hiring a good agent that is experienced, that knows how to do the research, knows the questions to ask, it will
mhm.
help prevent any sort of unknown risk that could pop up down the road.
Exactly, very good point. Like again, I've heard this a lot from other agents as well. Like your cousin is not your real estate professional. Like your friend is not. Like you gotta really understand that part. Like you need to do this, and because honestly, for a lot of people, selling a property, buying a one is the biggest decision of their life. Come on, wake up. Like you can't really trust this. Like you gotta be super careful. Get that professional person and make sure she or he is actually helping you with the whole process, because this is not something that you would go kind of easy for it. Cool, very good point. Now let's talk about buying in South Florida as well. Let's say I'm moving from, I don't know, New Jersey, New York, California, or another states, and I call you, Crystal, tomorrow saying, "Hey, Crystal, I want to buy a home in South Florida." What are the first question you're going to ask me?
First question I'm going to ask is, are you familiar with South Florida? And depending on their answer is going to be what the next questions are going to be. So let's say somebody is familiar and they want to live in Pompano Beach or in Lauderdale by the Sea, and they want a single family home. And then the next question I ask is, what's your budget? And once they tell me what their budget is, then I can say, okay, you know what? There are these certain neighborhoods in Pompano that would fit for you, or Lauderdale by the Sea, or maybe we need to go and explore some different opportunities that'll give you almost the same of what you're looking for.
Very good point. So these are the first thing that we will probably ask. And what about the surprises? I mean, what is something that surprise out of state buyers when they start shopping for homes in South Florida? Something they usually don't think about until they actually start the process.
Taxes and insurance.
Mm,
that they don't think about all of the other costs. They look at their mortgage, they look at the interest, and they're basing their numbers on this one thing. But then when you add your potentially 10 plus $1,000 a year in taxes, your 7 or 8 or $10,000 in insurance, it really starts to increase that monthly payment. So we sort of work
mhm,
backwards. So we say, okay, your estimated taxes are going to be this, your insurance is going to be this, your principal and interest are going to be this. Are you comfortable with that payment? And then once we figure out that payment, then we work backwards and find out, okay, this is the property that, or this is the amount of the property that you want to buy.
mm. Yeah, yeah, very good point. Yeah, actually, that's pretty good as well. Cool. Now let's talk about condos. Like, I think South Florida obviously has a huge condo market. Like, if I'm considering buying a condo, what should I investigate beyond simply looking at the unit itself? What should buyers know about the building and association before making an offer?
So this is where we have to investigate and put on our private and our PI skills. And
Mm,
so we have to know, let me see your financials. Let me see how you've
mhm,
been managing your money over the past couple of years. How
mhm,
much is in the budget for reserves? Is it above 10%? Is it below 10%? Um, See if they've had any lawsuits, if there's any sort of risk that
mhm,
could potentially come up. What
mm,
are have they had their SIRS reports done, which are basically these structural integrity reports? They're very important for all buildings over 2 stories, and when you and through these reports, it basically allocates a certain number of dollars for each component, and it gives the life of that component. So, for example, if we have a roof and the roof needs to be replaced in 5 years, so there's a number allocated to that. And so the question is, how is the association going to come up with that money? Do they have the
mm,
money in reserves already set aside? Is there going to be a special assessment? Are the monthly dues going to increase? These are
mm,
things that are very important to know. And a lot of times they're not just readily known. Like you have to dig really deep and ask a lot of
mhm.
questions,
Yeah.
and the other thing is to review all of the minutes, because
Mm,
now Florida has to, all associations have to disclose the last 12 months of their meetings. And so even if something was mentioned 6 months ago about something that's going to happen in 2027, it could be the one like little clue that we need to start digging deeper to figure out, is this going to end up in a 25 or $30,000 assessment for my buyer, or is it already covered and we are going to get a new roof at no cost to us?
very good points, actually. I love the answer, Chris. I love it. Now let's switch side. Let's go to the selling a property. Someone owns a property in South Florida wants to sell it. What would you tell them to do before their home ever hits the market? Let us know about it.
So I'm really big on pre-listing inspections. That
Hmm.
means we get a licensed home inspector to come out and take a look at all the major components of the property. And this will uncover any potential issues that a buyer may have. And it'll give the seller a little bit more power, so then they can either fix the issue or disclose the issue, both of which buyers really appreciate. And transparency and honesty in this market goes so far.
Yeah, very good point. Good, good, good. So kind of transparency, the very first thing, and you mentioned actually pretty well. And what makes a home sale today in South Florida market? Is it primarily price, condition, marketing, location, or is it really the combination? Let us know what are your thoughts about it?
It's going to be a combination of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, properties that are close to the beach are obviously going to be considered, superior geographically. But if the property has an old roof and needs to be completely remodeled, you're going to have a little bit of a ding. So it's more of just like this, okay, we're going to add a little for this, we're going to take a little bit away for this. So it's really this magic, balance. And it really just depends on your buyer. A buyer might not care less, could not care less about the ocean. So maybe they want to
Mm-hmm.
live in Coral Springs, which is more of a suburban area that has better school districts.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really just depends on what they're looking for and what their end goal is in mind. If they're looking for an investment property, then maybe we need to send them to the beach because, rentals out there rent quickly. Or if you want
Exactly.
to raise a family, you go to Coral Springs because it's,
Mhm.
has great school districts and it's just a really safe, nice community to grow up in.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Good points, actually, Crystal. So, what about the mistakes? What are the three biggest mistakes you see South Floridian Floridian actually homeowners make when they selling their property?
Overpricing, thinking
Overpricing.
their prop thinking their property is worth more than it really is.
Mm, that's number one. What about the two others?
Excuse me.
Overpricing and overpricing.
Yes, overpricing. Yes, right. Can I say all three? Overpricing, overpricing, and overpricing.
Why not?
I would say not. This is something that I think every homeowner across the world should be focusing on, and it is maintaining their property. This is
Mm,
something that sellers sometimes don't do. They think, okay, I'm going to sell my house, so I'm going to do everything I haven't done in 5 years in the next 3 months, and it's going to make a difference. And what
mm,
I've found is the homes that sell the quickest for the most amount of money are homes that have been well maintained. Their
exactly.
roofs have been pressure washed, their homes have been painted, their landscaping is maintained. Any little items that have popped up over the life of the home have been taken care of.
Mm.
And that will add more value to a property than almost anything that I know.
Exactly. And a good maintenance, I think that's one of the reasons that you can sell faster. I love it. Cool. Now let's talk about investing in commercial real estate as well. Your commercial actually experiences included properties, types such as apartment complexes and self-storage, as well as offices, shopping places, and hotels. Did working with income producing property change the way you personally think about real estate investing? Or let us know, take us through that journey.
Most definitely. So when I was working at Cushman and Wakefield, I dealt with huge portfolios of properties. We're talking sometimes into the billions of dollars. And, so those things were a little bit out of touch for me at the time, but now I understand that I was able to assign that model to a smaller scale. So
Hmm.
now I have investment properties that I am able to utilize that. And so I would say that in terms of investment properties, like and real estate is the way to go. Whether it's commercial or residential, you
Hmm.
almost can't lose on it. Now, if you're looking for like that quick fix and flip, you might have an issue. But if you're looking for long-term hold and that, monthly income, then you can't really go wrong with it.
Exactly. Very good point. Yeah, yeah. Good point. Good point. Cool. Now let's switch into something that I see a lot of people are interested as well, into the human side of real estate. Since we talk about sellers, buyers, and commercial, and let's talk about this as well. Sometimes, something that I think people underestimate about real estate is how emotional these transactions can become. You're dealing with someone home, money, family, future, and sometimes decades of memory from that property. So how much of being a great realtor is actually managing emotions rather than simply managing a transaction? So let us know about it.
Um, this is the part that I love about real estate. It is not about selling properties at all. It really is about just connecting with people at a human level. And
Yeah.
one of the places that I thrive is really understanding emotions and not reacting emotionally to them. So I am sort of like this pillar where I just
Yeah.
stand and I allow people to feel the emotions that they need to because it's not just a transaction. It's like these people have huge waves and I always say it's like it's a roller coaster. Like, you're going to be so far up and so excited and then not be able to sleep because you're so riddled with, oh my god, what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
so and I to my buyers and sellers that it's like this, or they're sad about something, or they're elated about something. I am here just to be able to tell them it's okay. Like I'm here to help you and help you manage all of this. And one of the things that I joke about with my clients all the time, and it's so true, is, I say, listen, you don't have me just for this transaction. Like, you're stuck with me for life. Like, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Like, you're stuck with me for life. And no matter what it is, and no matter how I can help and what I can do for you in the future, I'm going to be there. And
Yeah.
it's you unfortunately, if an agent doesn't understand that, they're not going to do very well in this business.
Yeah, exactly. You said it very well. I think showing that empathy and kindness support because we are really dealing with humans, and this is probably their biggest decision ever, selling their homes, like buying a one. So you're absolutely right about it. Very good point, Crystal. So cool. Now let's talk about the your business, real estate business. So real estate is also an incredibly competitive industry. What has been the biggest sources of growth for your own business? Is it, referrals, relationships, social media, past clients, networking, or combination?
So I think it's sort of all of the above.
Hmm.
With the exception of networking, I'm really not good at it. I'm not good at small talk. I'm not good at, talking about things that don't really matter, And so I have been able to find some groups that I can come in and just sit down and say whatever's on my mind, and I can have them say whatever. And those are the groups that I really appreciate. I find that they're a little bit smaller, they're a little bit more intimately connected. But overall, I would say most of my business is coming from referrals. I really strive to do the best job I possibly can for each one of my clients. I put my heart and soul into what I do. And I think it shows, and it shows by having, them connect me with their friend or their colleague, or, their son or daughter, to
Hmm.
help them as well. So I think it's a combination, in real estate, we really have to kind of work all facets of our business in order to keep ourselves relevant. Um, so I do a lot of social media. I post a lot of informative videos. But I would really say it's probably number one is going to be my referral business. People
For
just
sure.
speak my name in rooms.
Exactly. That's a good point. Like I think the people that are really professional in any business, they understand that one client can become your messenger. They can kind of take the message of your business, give it to all of their friends. If you do an excellent job, like even good enough is not
Mhm,
actually, I think, good. You gotta do an excellent
mhm.
job at that. You gotta kind of go for it. And sometimes it's hard, but if you do it, you don't even need all of that kind of hard marketing that you have to go. But yeah, I 100% I agree with you. Cool.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question as well because we have to talk about AI and the future of real estate because honestly, it's kind of starting to touch practically every industry. How do you think AI is going to change the role of realtor over the next 5 years? And I honestly think I doubt that it's going to replace realtors because the human touch is something else. But let me know your thoughts.
So I'm on your I'm on your wavelength as well. I think that AI it's already a daily part of our lives. I use AI every single day. But I don't rely on it to do the work for me. I rely on it to make my job a little easier. So, for example, I do all of my research, I do all of my data collection, and then I drop it into Claude, and then Claude produces this beautiful report that it would take me hours on Canva to do.
For
And
sure.
so it's all of my own data, it's all of my own research. It still has that very human touch, but it's just formatted in a way that's pretty. And so that's how I think that, AI is going to be able to help. Unfortunately, I think it's going to hurt a lot of agents because they're going to rely on it solely for their analyses, for everything. And that's an area that I think is going to it's going to shake itself out. That,
Mm,
this business, it's tough and it's hard.
it
And
is.
those of us with an edge and utilize tools like AI in a ethical manner are going to continue to grow and to, evolve. And those who are relying on it solely to create their business, they're going to suffer at some point.
For sure. Can't agree more. Exactly, Crystal. I agree with this, and you're 100% right. Cool. Awesome, Crystal. As the last thing that you might say, first of all, there might be people watching this right now, so I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, if you are looking for a real estate agent and realtor and you're in South Florida, I think Crystal is should be your number one person realtor to get in touch with. But how they can contact you, Crystal, let them know, please.
So Instagram is always a great way. It's Crystal Gargiulo _ obviously my cell number. It's open 24/7. I always answer my phone.
Mhm.
Social media. It's my first and last name. I also have a YouTube channel. So there's a lot of different ways that you could reach out to me. And, so I'm sure that they'll be somewhere in here.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for that. Any last advice that you want to see to the people, anyone that is watching this right now?
If you're an agent, focus on relationships. And if you are a buyer or a seller, make sure you trust your agent. And if you don't trust them, they're not the right fit for you.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Cool. Thank you so much, Crystal. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you again. So let me